Welcome back to Mentor Mindset. The goal of this podcast is to really engage with advisors at all stages of the business life cycle and to really bring value to our viewers. Today we have Keith Smith. He's one of our newer advisors, been with us for right around a year. And Keith has a pretty unique story, kind of how he got into the business, getting out to a fast start, encountering a lot of things that first year advisors do, and then really finding a new purpose in what we do in this business. So for this second episode, kind of take it back from what we talked about with Stacy in kind of a longer journey and a very high level of success later on in their career, to just looking at year one and isolating what Keith has done and talking to him about what his journey has been. So Keith, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
So what brought you into the business?
So my background is corporate finance. So I worked for as a financial analyst in healthcare with Lee Health, and then I worked for a pediatric mental health care startup. And that's sort of my background. I studied finance in college, and then kind of moved into the working world, and I think I was just kind of like missing some purpose in the work that I was doing. And I was actually referred to AFG by an advisor out at Westpac who works with my brother. And that's kind of how I got started. I reached out to my coaches, sat down with you, Jerry, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I've had, working here, because I think I was searching for that purpose, and now I finally have found it.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool thing about our firm, is that we have a local presence. So we serve our community. We have our local brand being Alliance Financial Group, but we have that national reach where there are people that our friends and family know from across the country or from previous jobs or from college or whatever it may be, that there's a great opportunity in this business for somebody, but just geographically, it didn't make sense for you to go out to Las Vegas,
right,
to start a career when you grew up here.
Yeah.
So luckily, we have a really good friendship with the people out there, and they said, hey, we've got this great guy. We think he should come into your firm, and kind of the same conversation that was being had with you.
Right.
And it ended up being a really good partnership with core values that are very similar between the firms, but just at a local level. So now you can kind of continue to live here and continue to use your relationships to build your business down in Southwest Florida.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to us about getting started. So coming on board, like you said, you were in the world of corporate finance, going from that transition to what we do, which is very different.
Yeah.
There's kind of a 9-to-5 job, and then coming into
way different
where we just kind of say, okay, here's a key, come in and go whenever you want.
Yeah.
And really building your own schedule and figuring out how to find that balance between working and still having a social life.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the learning curve for me, like, sort of having that structure with my previous jobs, and then coming into a business like this where it's very entrepreneurial. So kind of having to adjust, but really for me, the value I've found is, kind of leaning on the partners in the business, like, talking to them, things that I should be doing, or, ways that I could be successful in my first year. So it was definitely a learning curve for me, but, you just gotta hustle. It's a tough business, and everyone's kind of trying to figure it out, especially in the first year. So, it's been a lot of fun, but it can be tough at times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of peaks and valleys.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, especially for people in their first couple of years, kind of the emotional roller coaster that goes along with this. And in your first year, you've done a lot of really good things, starting with, in our world, not to get into too much jargon, but hitting the Client Builder Award, which is a 90-day metric that really gauges success for somebody's career. And coming out of the gates and hitting that metric, talk about kind of what the motivation was for those first 90 days, and then going into kind of the next 90 days where there's not really a milestone,
Yeah.
and then kind of completing your first year where, again, metrics and awards are brought back into the picture.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, your first 90 days really are the most important, and I don't think you really understand that importance until you get through them. But getting off to a fast start, it puts you at another level to grow your business, even after that. People that I reached out to and are talking to in my first 90 days, just letting them know what I'm doing, and now they're coming back into the picture a year later. So it's really important to get off to a fast start, and even after that, looking towards the next goal.
Yeah, I think it's really important, something that you said about reaching out to people in the early stages, just letting people know what you're doing, because
Right.
Troy, I don't know if we can kind of superimpose this after the fact, but there's a really good chart that talks about reaching out to people, and it's like very few sales are made in your first attempt and the second attempt.
Right.
And then the amount of follow-up that goes in, where I think it's somewhere between the 10th and the 15th attempt is where the actual sale is made.
Right.
And in our business, it's all about timing.
Yeah.
It
really is.
It's never really a no. It's just a now may not be the right time. And when am I in a life situation where thinking about investments and insurance is something that becomes practical to me.
Right.
So being at the top of people's minds and continuing to reach out, not in a pestering way, but just, hey, I'm thinking about you and here's what I'm doing, I think is really, really valuable.
In a genuine way.
Right.
Sometimes people just need a little bit of a nudge,
Yeah.
And it kind of takes us reaching out to them to kind of push them forward.
Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a couple minutes, about some of the clients that have taken action. But talk to me about in that first year. You came in out of the gates really, really hot. You got, which is a major accomplishment in your first 12 months of being here. Talk about what that did from kind of the confidence level, the education level, the comprehension of the material, just going from coming in with an insurance license to then having, just kind of walk me through that process in your first year of mentally what that's like to go through, study, continue to work, trying to make money, and then as you pass those tests.
If you'd like to learn more about our wealth management philosophy and style, please check out our website, www.afgfl.com, and click Talk to a Financial Professional.
In your first year, trying to find the balance of studying for exams, getting fully licensed while trying to, gain practical experience with clients. It's tough to try and find that balance, but you do, and the way you gain experience is just at bats, and getting those licenses kind of gives you the confidence to get out there and talk to people,
right,
and be knowledgeable about the work you're doing with them. Do you?
And that's what people want to talk about for whatever reason, especially with the volatility lately. People are open to talking about the market and everything going on, regardless of what stage of life they're at.
Right.
That's what I've found is somebody brand new out of school says, okay, I need to enter the market and get investing. I need to open up a Roth IRA or start a brokerage account. People that are closer to retirement are talking about, what do we need to do to make sure we have that steady income as we get to retirement? And that's just a conversation point that I think, for whatever reason, because it's in the news, on TV, it's more talked about, that it's just more commonly accepted in conversation.
Right.
In the other half of our world, being the insurance part, I'll tell you that for younger advisors, for younger clients, it is probably the most impactful part of what we do, just because life changes quickly. If somebody puts a couple $1,000s into an account and it doubles, it's good. It's a good feeling. If that money goes to zero, it's a bad feeling, but it doesn't change their life.
Right.
Things happen in people's worlds with health, with accidents. on a regular basis. And I know recently we've kind of experienced some of that where we've met with some clients and one in particular where we went through, we did the whole planning process. They became a very good client, and then a pretty drastic health change happened a few months after they just became a client.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about kind of the process of that and engaging with that person, and now fast forward to today and what happened to them?
Yeah. So through the lens of protection, it's, I think, arguably the most important, piece that we kind of bring to the table for our clients. And, we sat down with a good friend of mine from school, and we went through the whole process, got the proper protection in place for him. And then just a couple weeks ago, I got a call that he had a brain tumor, and he's 30 years old, has 2 kids, a wife. You're not really thinking about that type of stuff. And the first thing he did, when I went up there was he thanked me. Just the importance of getting that protection in place in the event that something were to happen. He never want anything to happen, right? But things happen,
And what I'll tell you is, just because I was part of these meetings with you, is the protection part of the conversation was percentage-wise very small. We talked far more about investments. We talked about his business ventures. We talked about, at the time, he was changing careers.
Right.
So we talked about a ton of stuff, and just in the mix of it was, hey, we need more life insurance.
Yeah.
Very rare chance that something's going to happen, but you're making a lot of money. You're doing really well. Let's get some coverage in place just to make sure that everything's taken care of, just in a what-if scenario.
Right.
And fast forward just a couple months, and without that, probably a very, very low likelihood that his family would ever be able to receive coverage on him in the event that something happens.
Right.
I know there's still kind of a long road to recovery, but things are optimistic.
Yeah.
But those are the things.
He wants to get back to work already.
I know. And those are the things where, in the grand scheme of things, hopefully this is just a little bit of a blip or a scare that doesn't change his life forever.
Right.
But definitely kind of a wake-up call to a lot of people. And I've experienced it over the last 15 years or so, where somebody that's totally healthy today, maybe it's not something like a tumor, but it could be a car accident, a skiing accident, a slip and fall. Something happens where they're not the same person that they were before, and then throw in a brain tumor, cancer, MS, different conditions that you can develop. And it's something that a lot of people just don't think about taking care of early on.
Right.
I think in our business, it's kind of a stigma of, oh, you're selling insurance, and why do people need that? And to be honest, it's like, you kind of don't need it until you need it. And whenever you need it, you're not getting it.
Right.
So it's one of those things that it's better to be safe than sorry. I think that we put things in place where it's not a gigantic out-of-pocket cost to our clients. It fits into their overall plan.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of other things that are happening in their world. So it's not just an insurance sale, but a consultation with their full financial plan.
Right.
And I think that's why you're having a lot of success with younger people taking action on everything, not just saying, I'm going to do just the investments, or I'm just going to do the insurance, but saying, okay, in the grand scheme of things, this all makes sense. I'll do it all. And then in the event that something happens, that they're taken care of.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, obviously this is still pretty fresh, but just kind of the renewed conviction around seeing something like this happen and reaching out to people, and maybe people at the beginning that said, hey, I'm not really interested, or I'm not really taking this seriously yet.
Yeah.
I'm not married. I don't have kids. Whenever that happens, I'll think about financial planning. Just a little bit around now your conversations with those people.
I think now I have a why of, why I'm doing this. And, we do a lot of talking and training and different meetings that we have in terms of development as new advisors. And a lot of it's kind of around, developing your why and the conviction that you have. And now I have that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we had to go through that, but, it really just highlights the importance of the work that we're doing. Because, life happens and you want to make sure that, you're protected, your family's protected in the event that, something were to go wrong.
Yeah. And it's crazy because for as, I don't want to say naive, but there's a term called cognitive dissonance that kind of makes us think like we're immortal, like nothing's going to ever happen to us.
Right.
But then you think about it, and if we sat in a room with 100 people and we said, raise your hand if you know anybody that was ever diagnosed with cancer before the age of 50, or anybody that was in a bad accident that impacted their life for more than 6 months, or passed away before the age of 60 or 65. Pretty much every hand would go up in that room. And we see it all around us on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the odds are low, but it's happening to people every single day, and we all see it.
Yeah.
But it's just never going to happen to us. And I think that with what we do, it's having conversations with people. It's letting people vote. Our job is not to convince anybody to do anything different. It's not to determine if they want to take care of their family, or if they want to put money away or save for retirement, or save for today, or save for whatever it is, college funding. It's to present information and let the clients vote.
Yeah. I think we have a very practical approach with that. Like I'm very comfortable sitting with people and, especially talking to somebody about their finances. It's a very intimate subject. So just even to have the opportunity to sit down with them and they have that trust with you. But sitting down with them, I'm always comfortable, when we go on a call with a client, because we have a very practical approach. It's, we sit down, learn about them, talk about their goals, and put together a plan of, all right, these are some things we got to take care of.
Right.
And, here's where you want to be. We can try and get you there.
It's all a conversation.
Yeah.
I think people come in and they think that there's an agenda, or there's some kind of script, or there's some kind of preconceived, this is what these guys are getting out of me coming into here. And I joke around all the time. I'm like, I have no idea if or what we can help you with.
Right.
I know nothing about you until we spend 45 minutes to an hour together.
There's no gotchas or anything.
Right.
We're just trying to have conversations with people,
Right. If you come in here and you tell me you've got a boatload of life insurance and disability insurance, great. We're probably not going to recommend that you get a bunch more.
No.
If you come in here and you tell me that you've got a history of cancer, or had a stroke, or a heart attack, or something like that, you may want insurance as badly as anybody, but you're probably not getting it.
Right.
You may tell me that you want to retire in 5 years, but if you don't have the cash to do it, probably not going to happen. So we need to just learn and have real conversations with our clients. And I always tell people, especially our new advisors, is time is a much better thing to work with than a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is working with younger clients with potential will give you runway and margin of error to still succeed. A client that comes in that's 50 or 55 with a short runway that maybe has close to enough money to succeed gives you no margin of error, and we have to be extremely precise with probably less level of risk to make sure that we get there.
Right.
Clients that want to start early and that want to buy into this, the success rate is off the charts.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with all of our calculators. If people come in, save the right amount of money, and protect against all of the bad things that can happen, there's 100% success rate.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It takes a lot of time to grow and accumulate wealth. And the earlier you start, the better off you'll be.
Right.
I think there's a real, just something that I really like what we do is an emphasis on the rate of savings versus maybe the rate of return.
Right.
The rate of return is what people are always looking for. But when you have an emphasis on the rate of if you're saving the right amount of money, it'll take you to the place you want to be down the road.
Yeah. I think that in the world of sound bites, and I mean, we're now part of the problem with doing stuff like this, but in a world of sound bites and people making clicks and seeing 30 seconds bits of things, everybody's chasing rate of return. Everybody's looking for the next get rich quick stock or crypto or whatever it may be that is going to be the overnight success of hitting the lottery. And we know that for most people, that's not going to happen.
Right.
It's the long, slow grind of just doing the right things, making the right decisions, and not sacrificing today to do that. It's just having the level of balance and doing it the right way and putting enough money to go away for the future and still enjoying what you're doing now.
Yeah.
If you had to give advice to yourself kind of 12 months ago as you came into the career, what would you go back and tell first day Keith in the business?
I would say talk to everybody, reach out to everyone, especially experiencing what we've just experienced, with one of our clients. Like, you're going to gain the experience, but now with the experience that I have, I would tell myself, put yourself out there and go talk to everybody, because the work that we do is very important.
Yeah, I think for any advisors, this is really put out to the general public. So people that are watching it that know us, that are potentially clients of ours, that are just kind of hearing our story, people in college or people that have careers that they're not happy with and say, hey, maybe I want to go into financial planning and I just want to hear people's take on what this is. At the beginning, let people know what you do.
Yeah.
The rejection, I'll tell you, is not personal. Some people just aren't ready to do this. Unfortunately, if you look at all of the statistics, there's a high probability or a high percentage of people that don't win in this game of retirement and living a happy life financially.
Yeah.
And it's sad that all of the statistics tell us that there's roughly half or 2/3 of people that are not going to do what they want in retirement the way that they think that they're going to.
Yeah.
So at some time, people will be ready, and hopefully there's enough time for us to help them.
Yeah.
The people that want help early, we're very eager to help, but reach out to everybody and at least let them vote.
Yeah.
Because then if something happens, I told you a couple weeks ago, had you not reached out to that person and this would have happened, your stomach would have hurt for weeks being like, I knew that person. They were on my list. They were somebody that was close to me.
Yeah.
Why didn't I make the call?
Right.
Now, if that person would have said, hey, Keith, I really appreciate what you're doing. I think it makes sense, but it's just not the right time. At least you gave them the opportunity to vote and they chose not to.
It's not on my conscience at that point.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing is just letting people vote, letting people understand what it is that we do, and then take actions for them based on what's best on their family.
Yeah.
And by us giving them the information, it's no different than them going to the doctor and the doctor saying, hey, eat healthy, exercise, don't smoke, don't do drugs, don't drink a lot. And then if the person goes out and does it, it's like, okay, well, the doctor told them what to do.
Yeah.
They need to take responsibility and do it.
Yeah.
So, Keith, I really appreciate the time today. I think this was really good. Gives a really different perspective from episode 1 with Stacy, somebody that's been in the career for almost 10 years. Somebody just here for a year, having a lot of success, doing really well, working with a lot of people and making a big impact in the community. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed our conversation today, please like and follow us on all the different social media platforms. If there's any topics that you would like us to discuss, please leave them in the comments below. And as always, we're looking to grow our firm. If you know any individuals who you think would be a phenomenal addition to the Alliance Financial Group family, please reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation with them.
This podcast is intended for general public use and is for informational purposes only. By providing this content, Park Avenue Securities LLC and our financial representatives are not undertaking to provide investment advice or make a recommendation for a specific individual or situation or to otherwise act in a fiduciary capacity. This information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Mike and Keith are registered representatives, and Keith is a financial advisor at Park Avenue Securities LLC, PAS OSJ 14021 Metropolis Ave, Fort Myers, Florida 33912 239 561 2900. Securities products and advisory services offered through PAS, member FINRA, SIPC. Financial representatives of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, NY. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Alliance Financial Group is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Mike CA Insurance License 0M21715. AR Insurance License 158383330. 797424.8.1 expires 527.